Welcome to another edition of Thunder and Lightning. I am your host, Dan, and of course, not next to me is not the other Nikki. I have my third favorite Nikki, Nicky motherfucking Snacks. What is up in the motherfucking building? Episode 3 of Hard Knocks is just wrapped up. What's our vibes? This episode was the free agency episode. This was the so long, see you later, Saquon Barkley episode. This was the Brian Burns got the trade done episode. Let's get the hog mollies. Let's get the offensive linemen ready to go, and a couple interesting tidbits about Tyrod, and then ultimately leading up to Drew Luck becoming our second string quarterback at the moment. Nick, what's up tonight? How's it going?
Danny, thanks for having me on. It was definitely an eye opener. They did not want Saquon back. Like, we'll get that off our chest, which I don't blame them. A team situated the way they are right now should have no reason to bring him back.
Right.
But they went a different route in building their team, which I love, and going after Brian Burns, which is awesome. My biggest takeaway from this was the Saquon, Joe Shane, Ed Berry, his agent, Saquon's agent, and their negotiations. And John Mara's in there, and he's walking out, just back turned to him. I was like, whoa, that's John, get with the times. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you hire Joe Shane because with the times, he knows what he's doing. But, the owner of your company goes like that, walks away from you. That's tough.
That's definitely tough, and it's just the ultimate, like, all right. And then you hear Joe Shane says, trust me on this. Obviously, we've seen the last couple of weeks, and we've seen it numerous times over the last couple of years. Mr. Mara basically said he's basically our franchise. So, Obviously, when you lose a caliber of player like Saquon, it obviously hurts. But the Giants pivoted to the right directions of how to ultimately grow this team into the future and hopefully becoming this perennial playoff team. That would be obviously the ultimate goal, especially you and me. We are more of the more bitter Giant fans. You're more than I am. You make me look sane sometimes on Sundays and Mondays and Thursdays, depending on the game. But when it all comes push to shove, as much as it sucked that we're going to see Saquon in the Eagles jersey, it was ultimately the best decision to do. Obviously, this upcoming season is going to look rough, but towards the end of that contract, we're going to be sitting pretty, and hopefully for the Eagles' sake, it's like, all right, bad karma for them, you know?
Well, without a doubt. And if we were in any position to be situated to win a division or even compete in the playoffs, then Joe Shane makes that deal. We're not.
100%.
We're not. And I guess I give Saquon credit. He said we never came back to him with an offer, and this episode showed that we didn't.
Right. And that was the good rope-a-dope. And that was the good rope-a-dope by HBO.
Yeah, they brought us right in on that. Teased us and brought us right in.
Yeah, HBO doing HBO things. We're big HBO fans, so we knew that was coming at some point. But it was really interesting to go see what's like the inner workings of what free agency day is, and him and Dave's were talking of like what are our top 5 players in each bracket on what to go after and everything else like that. I found that to be interesting. I'm a sucker for that, especially playing fantasy football and baseball. And obviously with your background in fantasy sports, it was like cool to see because we tend to do those lists, obviously a lot cheaper situations, but with like seeing how they were ready for the moves. They were playing chess instead of playing checkers.
Right.
So that was really good to see. And they nailed all the top guys that they wanted offensive line wise. So
so I don't mean to interrupt, Danny.
Go for it.
That was my biggest thing. They had a big board of players they wanted, like Hunt at guard. They talked about Runyon. They had Illuminor. Granted, Runyon and Illuminor, their prices were a little bit higher than Joe Shane would have thought, but like he said, that's free agency. So they didn't go out and spend $15 million a year on Hunt, which I will say I'm happy that they had him in mind, and that that the offensive line is the number one priority, which is huge.
For sure.
And I like the cohesion with him and Dable. Like, hey, you like this guy? You like this guy? This is what we're thinking. This is in our budget, and they're writing it on the whiteboard and whatnot. And Dable's approving it. So while I don't think our roster's there yet, obviously,
no. So many what ifs, obviously.
But the fact that they have that cohesion, that they're talking about player personnel together,
right,
and what the coach wants as what the GM sees, to me, that's a good sign.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So as you obviously know, John Runyon and Illuminar signed basically right away for us. And it was basically Illuminar signing really confuses the hell out of me. In terms of, all right, he's a tackle. He was decent at tackle for the Raiders the last couple of years. He can play guard, but obviously with looming of Evan Neal, I know he's your favorite Giant right now currently.
I would do anything for him to be off the team. Yes.
Right. And it just seems to be there's that non-factor of Illuminar is going to be our guard going into training camp next week. And that's concerning because as of right now, Josh Azudu is coming back from an injury, and he's basically our backup tackle on both sides of the ball.
And he wasn't good when he was healthy.
He was far from good when he was healthy. He basically killed Daniel Jones with the neck injury last year, if you remember correctly.
Trying to put it politely, yeah.
So, yeah, that I'm trying not to be negative, but that's just the looming of knowing how the team is building at the moment. And I wish we can see Illuminar play right tackle and just compete for that job and see wherever Evan Neal could probably be slated at guard. But obviously, year 3, we have at least one more year left with Evan Neal. So could it be middle of this year, towards the end of next year, that we'd move him to guard? It might be too little too late, but we shall see.
Yeah. And I will say it raised my eyebrows. I think this regime has a lot more confidence in JMS at center than maybe the fans do. Yes. Because he goes, well, we have JMS, AT, and then if we can bring in Runyon, then we'll have a solidified 3 guys. Right. Joe Shane was saying that. So I like the fact that they have that much confidence in him. Now we'll see this year, because going into last year, that was my favorite draft pick in a long time. I was like, we need to solidify the center position. We haven't had somebody, a leader in the middle for since O'Hara.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
And I was so pumped for him, and he disappointed. He was not great. I know he was injured and whatnot. But he's a second-round pick. So you have to think that a second-round pick from a team that is deprived of offensive line need is going to see this guy and probably study him more than other teams and think that he's going to be the one. So when Joe Shane said that, and he mentioned JMS and AT as stalwarts on the line, I was like, okay, well, I'm glad to hear that they have confidence in him.
Yeah. And then with him he was a plug-and-play starter right away because he was one of the COVID seniors. So
correct, yeah.
He was playing at Minnesota for 6 years, basically. So it's the same thing with Tyler Newbin this year, our other second-round pick from Minnesota. So it's going to be interesting to see how they mix and match next week and going through this whole summer of what the offensive line is going to ultimately be. But the moves were there. They took care of, and they got the 2 guys that they wanted. 2 out of the 3 guys ain't bad, especially them being the price of what Hunt was. So that's just smart business. Hopefully at the end of the day, they work out, man. Like, that's, for whatever reason, whatever offensive line we usually have gotten the last decade hasn't panned out. So
no, and Michael Strahan's not lining up against John Runyon Jr. because obviously we know Michael Strahan destroyed his father when he was in Philly. So that's good. But to get Runyon and Illuminor for essentially the same AAV as Hunt is a nice get. I like that haul. I do. And they clearly targeted both. So I like that. And just on Twitter and the fact that what we're seeing with Illuminor, he's happy to be here.
That was
He
my next
wants to
question
be
about
here.
Luminor. Was very weird. They were going to offer him the 3rd year, and I
Yeah.
forgot who mentioned it. No, he only wants 2 years. And we're like, and Joe Shane was like, oh, okay, that's weird.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with that. Maybe they'll get him to the 3rd year. I don't know. We'll see how he plays out with us in year 1. But that was a little weird. Usually you want the stability of the extra year coming from a player.
Right.
So that was a little weird.
It was very interesting overall to see how their free agency board kind of comes together,
right?
And what they think players are worth, and then what they actually have to pay them. So
right.
I really like that inside aspect of the show tonight.
Right, and the other the other interesting thing was, before we get into Saquon, because obviously Saquon's going to be the bigger part of the show, was Tyrod. Dave's wanted Tyrod no matter what. Obviously, the Jets weren't backing down. After, I didn't realize the Jets wanted Illuminor and Runyon that badly as well. We were able to beat them out on both players. So the Jets must have been like, fuck this, we're getting Tyrod. So Tyrod once again getting good amount of money.
Well, there's nothing better than backing up your 40-year-old injury-prone quarterback with a 35-year-old injury-prone quarterback. So good for them.
Good for them. I'm not mad. I did like Tyrod for what he was. So
the offense ran as smooth as ever with him last year. So.
Arguably, yeah. There's no arguing in that. And a couple hiccups here and there, we could have had a couple more wins. So, yeah, no, for sure with Tyrod. That was interesting to see. And then they decided to go on Drew Lock. And then that was their bargaining with Drew Lock, was basically, look what our coaching staff has done with backup quarterbacks. In Buffalo, they had Mitch Trubisky, and then Pittsburgh signed him for a bigger contract to eventually start. That lasted not long at all. But
come here and you get a payday, pretty much.
Basically. So it's going to be interesting to see. It was a 1-year deal, which we all know, for Drew Lock. So, and it was like, all right, well, let's see what Drew Lock does. He does what Dable wants to do, actually. So who knows? And at this point of the offseason, we still don't know what's going on with Daniel Jones. We still are flirting with the idea of trying to move up, or if someone was to fall down to us at 6, that was still on the table. So it's a good security blanket. I know Drew Lock isn't the most home known name right now at the moment. He's had moments when he was on the Broncos. Other than him singing Young Jeezy, he's had moments. And then this year beating the Eagles on a Monday Night Football game was pretty impressive to see. So by no means I'm going to be overly confident into Drew Lock, but compared to other situations, he's obviously better than Tommy DeVito. Even though he's our paisan, he is what he is. But let's see what happens with that, and hopefully Drew Lock has a good training camp. And obviously Singletary, we all know Dave's like Singletary from his time with the Bills, and then last year with the last couple of years with the Texans. He's a solid back. That's just, he's going to get you those.
He's consistent.
He's very consistent. He's not that flashy guy. He's an ultimate pro, and his nickname is Motor for a reason. So he's going to be the guy that we all like, but he's not that, oh my God, like this guy is our team type of thing. So that's probably a good thing as well.
No, I definitely agree. And the fact that they eyed Singletary right away tells you all you need to know. Yeah. They knew.
And that leads us the whole Saquon thing, and then we'll get into the Brian Burns thing. As far as it, like we mentioned before, they let him test the market. You know what that means. All right, come back to us with a good offer.
Means see ya.
See ya, aka see ya. You're going to be getting a lot more money. agent called back. This is what we're getting. Joe Shane was like, "Is it in the division?" And of course, the agent wasn't going to tell him where it was because smart business.
Yep.
But then again, would it be? It was smart business, but would you be like, all right?
Well, it could have been a leverage tool. I think that's what you kind of meant. Like, go back to the Giants. Yeah, it's in the division. Does this make you want to revamp your offer? I don't think it would have, but
old regime, he would have. That would have happened.
Well, he wouldn't even have been a free agency at this point.
Very fair point.
Yeah, he would not. We would not be having this discussion.
Right.
So
but
get him and would have signed him to a $20 million a year deal.
Yeah. And then, like we mentioned with John Mara, it just thank God we have someone in the newer realm of NFL. All right. It's just like relief pitching in baseball and other positions in baseball.
Because John Mara's still stuck in his ways too.
Yeah.
And you could tell by his reactions with the whole Saquon stuff.
Tim McDonald is obviously his nephew, so you can tell
what's our identity.
The tea leaves are obviously I'm gonna be the guy that's gonna push for Saquon all the way. Yep. And then obviously he's like, all right, well, that's too rich for our blood. Thank you for calling us. And it's tough to see good players leave, but honestly, like I mentioned,
absolutely. But when it is a running back like that, and he's getting $13 million a year, for a rebuilding team like we are, no, sorry,
no, absolutely not, not. We're just gonna have to take the beating.
If we weren't paying Daniel this much money, then I would sign him,
right,
and say, okay, whoever the rookie quarterback coming in was, here's your best weapon,
right.
But that's not the way the cookie crumbled. So
no, it's no point of crying over it.
No,
it is what
I don't even have to talk about it anymore.
And then they broke down the trade with Brian Burns. It was basically, if we get Brian Burns, that means see you later, Xavier McKinney. I've always liked McKinney, but I'll be honest with you, safety is the other position on the football team where it's just like running back. Yes, we could overpay him, but right now with so many holes on the team,
why would we?
Why would you? And Jason Pinnock was playing relatively well, and what McKinney was getting, not saying he's not worth it in the upcoming years. Packers are always in that perennial playoff push, so they're able to pay that money. And the Packers, they never really pay that money.
No, they never go out of the way for that. McKinney's a great ball player. He is. He plays every snap.
Right.
He's a miserable, shitty tackler, but whatever. But he does everything well. However, if you're going to tell me, if you're going to say, oh, Snacks, who do you want? Do you want defensive end Brian Burns, who's a perennial sack master, or do you want a safety that you can probably replace in the second round?
Right. No, 100%. You're
going pass rusher. It's a very easy answer, yeah.
You're going pass rusher. He's under 26. 27, they mentioned.
And you're teaming him with Thibodeau, and then you have Dexter in the middle. Like, that defensive front, and I said this on Talking Giants last week.
By the way, that episode was embarrassing. We'll get into that later.
That's okay. The only reason of optimism is the defensive line and the front seven are fantastic.
And you're forgetting Ojulari. Ojulari is able to be that
I'm not forgetting Ojulari. He's not good. He's terrible.
He's not good, but for him to be the third guy, we've seen him when healthy. He could be a difference maker.
Yes. For the 4 games.
Keyword healthy, but him being the third rusher, contract year, I like my chances with him.
Glaber Torres is in a contract year, and he's the worst
player
in baseball.
All right. We don't have to get into Glaber. We know he's a dog.
Just saying.
We know he's a dog.
Just saying.
You're not wrong. And if it wasn't for the Orioles pushing back their fence in left field, who knows what would have happened. But
he would still suck.
Except when they play the Orioles. But yeah, I digress. Obviously, Brian Burns, it was funny because the GM for them is very tight with Joe Shane. They mentioned towards the end of the episode that their daughters are good friends. How old is that daughter? She must be in like high school or approaching college. but they're good friends, and they were trying to get a 7th-round pick out of it. And Joe's like, "Come on, let's just do the deal. We gotta get players too. Come on, knock it off." And then they ended up settling for the picks that they originally negotiated. So looking back on it, it was the first 2nd-round pick that we had, and then a 5th. Was it a 5th? And then another
5th, yeah.
pick.
And then we got back as the 6th?
And a 6th, and Brian Burns.
Something
and
like
then,
that, yeah.
And then a pick next year. So obviously, I'm excited for Brian Burns, like you mentioned. KT, we need. He had a very good, productive season sack-wise last year. For him being a top 10 pick, there's just so much more.
Top 5 pick.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Neil was the 7th pick. Yes. Sorry, I had them mixed up. But yes, a top 5 pick. He has to have that breakout season this year, all over the field. You know what I mean? Especially when you're gonna expect to pay this guy in 2 years. You know, because they're gonna pick up his 5th-year option. There's no doubt in my mind, unless he completely gets hurt this year or just has a shit year. You know what I mean? So we're gonna have to have him be that top 5 pick, and it's there. Can we get it more consistent? Yes. We need KT to be that 2nd level and becoming that. And obviously with Brian Burns coming here, we should be getting that.
Well, and that's why I said I had so much optimism, quiet optimism, because of that defensive line.
Right.
And this is Thibodeau's year. Joe Shane, Brian Dable, the front office, they gave him an absolute weapon, a proven weapon.
Yeah, he had Hattie. They basically had Hattie the last 2 years across from him.
Correct. Which was pathetic. Which was a dog, but
bad dog, like a bum. He's
no team is focusing on him. They're going to focus on Brian Burns, which is going to open up Thibodeau. And then you have Dexter in the middle. So if Thibodeau is not going to be consistent all year this year, then I'm sorry. Yeah, you pick up the 5th-year option because you have no choice. He's the 5th overall pick. Good riddance. I'll see you. Like, you need to show me something now. Sorry, have to.
No, 100%. It's must make it or break a year for him and Evan Neal. Obviously,
please.
I know. I'm not optimistic about Evan Neal, but he's still a top 10 pick, and we have to use him until we can.
He's an atrocity.
Yeah, so far. And he hasn't been healthy, and that's added to the disgracefulness.
There is nothing about him that should be looking forward to.
No.
The only thing I look forward to with Evan Neal is when he's cut.
All right. I get it.
Oh, I'm just saying.
I'm with you. I'm with you. He was so good.
I know it sucks. It sucks. He's a top 10 pick.
He was so good at Alabama.
Yeah. It was phenomenal.
That sucks.
We thought we had 2 players of position in need, Thibodeau and Neal, and we thought we were set. And nope. No. We're not even sure that we have one. So.
Yeah. So hopefully.
Good job, Joe Shane. Keep smiling. You fucking.
Okay, so I saw that tweet before we started. Yeah, he was a little smiley for your liking.
He's too smiley. He hasn't done anything. Stop smiling. Be a man.
Be a man. Don't smile.
No, it makes me sick. He's like, oh, I'm the smartest guy in the room. Yeah, are you really? Well, look at your draft classes. They all kind of suck so far.
Yeah, not great.
They all kind of suck. You signed 2 long-term players in Dexter and Andrew Thomas, who you didn't even draft. You walked into 2 top 7 picks, one of which is an absolute disaster, and the other you may not even re-sign.
Yeah.
You paid a guy $40 million to be a quarterback every year. He's not good. You drafted a gadget wide receiver early in the 2nd round.
I like Wandell.
So do I. He was not deserving of where he got picked, though.
I agree. And then Hyatt.
I like Wandale a lot. Hyatt, yeah, he can go long. Awesome. Can't run a route to save his life.
Yeah, today he tweeted something about like a bat.
I don't care. I'm done with the tweet. I'm done. I don't care.
I'm just saying I have to say
perform. But Joe Shane has nothing to be smiling about, and it's getting me real angry.
Yeah, rage. I like your shirt, by the way. Greetings from Asbury Park, by the way.
Thank you. I knew you'd appreciate it.
Very nice. So next week is basically free agencies wrapping up. It's wrapping up. Is next week the last episode? Yeah. Next week is probably.
It?
It
They're
may
only
be
doing
one
4
more
episodes?
episode, maybe one more after. But next week basically is the ramp up for draft. Maybe they'll show the draft. If not this week, the following week. The last tidbit was they were talking about Jaden Daniels that Daves would trade up to get him. So
yeah, it just shows me that Dable knows that his quarterback that he has in the building right now is useless and will never be anything. So
yeah, I just got a text from my friend Rio, who's a big Commander fan. Check out his work. Obviously, if you want to check out Commander's work, he's basically the Talking Giants of Commanders fans, so it's pretty cool. He sent me the text. I'm like, all right, there you go. So he's all in on Jaden. So hopefully he's not as good as we all expect him to be.
well,
it is Washington. That's the only one thing I'll say about it.
And also, they weren't exactly enamored by him when he was doing the board work at the combine. So
Even though his answer was a smart ass comment, like
it was a smart ass comment, but he couldn't read back the play, he couldn't draw it. Like, come on, they were in love with Drake May. That was it. End of the story. You could see it last week. Brian Dable was in love with Drake May.
Tino, how true is it that the Giants rookie Theo Johnson is injured?
Probably very true. He's probably out for the rest of his career.
Yeah.
That's the New York Giants.
PUP, Bellinger was like that a couple years ago. I saw Bobby tweet at that. He was on PUP for a day. So we'll see what happens because I didn't hear about this injury until literally today. So let's see what happens with that. It just goes to show you, I saw some beat writers say that Bellinger might be the tight end on the bubble. I never bought that for a second.
Yeah.
Because he's
believe a word they say.
Well, not only that, it's just really funny. We have an actual tight end on the roster. Why would we get rid of him?
Right.
Stupid. But let's see what happens with Theo. I'm not really going to go crazy until later, until August.
Yeah.
But he's another guy that has high upside, and hopefully, obviously, starting on PUP as a rookie is never a good sign. So we'll see what happens with that. You mentioned that you were optimistic about the season coming in. Stupidly, me and Nikki on Monday were going through the first 10 games, and then it turned into a whole season. I've been all right. They're over under 7.5. I've been pretty consistent, going maybe 6 wins because of question marks. I guess Nikki got me on a good day, and I, for whatever reason, said 9 wins. So I guess 9 wins is the upside. 6 is where the safe space would be for me to pick.
I would say it's right in the middle, right there. Yeah. It all depends on weeks 3 through 8 if they're able to
survive
to steal 2 wins. Like if they do that, then I'm very confident that we will be watching somewhat meaningful football in December. So if not, see ya.
We suck again.
Suck again.
All right. That's that. So I've been harping all season about Dable and how good of a coach he is, and I'm praying that he in-house realizes how good of a coach he is. Even if it's a bad year, we can have him get the quarterback he actually wants. So, see, that's the weird double-edged sword of how much you like a coach and the coaching staff. You really, at the end of the day, it's all about wins and losses. And if we have a big stinker like what it looked like last year until they woke up, you can't justify him staying. And it's going to be louder and louder, and his seat's going to be warmed up a bit. So, I don't know. What do you think about Dibs? Because you and me both loved Joe Judge, and we both got suckered for that.
Yeah, I loved his words, but his coaching showed otherwise. I love Dable's coaching.
Right.
and I wish he would be better with his words. So
Yeah,
I'll
agree.
take coaching over words any day. Just I hope he gets his fair shake at a guy that he drafts, him and Joe Shane draft, and that he can mold. And then you go from there.
No, definitely.
That's
100%.
it.
No. Nikki, you have anything else before I wrap it up?
No, I appreciate you having me on. It's always a pleasure. And I got to say, this Hard Knocks version of the offseason is awesome.
Yeah.
It's so much better than the in-season. Just the wheeling and dealing and free agency side of it. Not even as a Giant fan, just overall, it's so cool.
And I've
So I
been talking
appreciate you
to
having me
fans.
on.
No, I thank you for coming on. And like you mentioned, I was getting texts from other fans saying how awesome this is. So I hope they keep this style of Hard Knocks on.
Same.
Because it's cool to see how they're wheeling and dealing, getting the combine. You and me are suckers for this type of event. So these events. So
True. True.
Yeah. So where can we find you on social media, Snacks?
You can find me Nicky Snacks _ Twitter, anywhere you want. That's
All
it.
right.
I tweet a lot of bullshit, a lot of Yankee hate, a lot of Giants hate, and then I have a lot of love for the Knicks. And then I tweet a lot about Wheel of Fortune too. So
Yes,
that's me. And in a nutshell, Danny, I appreciate you.
Thank you. By the
Show
way,
was fantastic as always.
As always, thank you for hopping on with me. As always, find us on YouTube, TNL_NYG. Like and subscribe. And of course, that's Sports Network. And then you can find us on all socials, TNL_NYG. And my new IG, DannyB_NY. Nikki, the other Nikki will be back on Monday. She was covering the
better
Liberty
one
today. The better, don't let her have that much credit. She's not going to watch anyway.
The prettier one.
The pretty one. Yeah, we could say that.
Well, I could say that because I'm hideous. So
yeah, it doesn't take much with you. Anyway, thanks for watching tonight. Please like and subscribe. We will see you on socials. Have a good night, guys.